and what they built on that ship. Even when Simon, you know.
Yeah, there were moments they were running from the law. They were young and they bounced running and that became their home.
You know, and I think for Mel, you know, after that loss in battle, I mean, his composure, his reaction to that was impeccable. The way he handled that was phenomenal. And I think he needed to find a way to say he won and save as many people as he still could save and give them sanctuary. And that's what he did with that ship.
That's what gave Mel purpose.
Yeah, that gave Mel purpose, and he treated that crew, even though they had their issues. And the way he spoke to them at times, or some of the other interactions, that was his family. And those are the people he was able to save and protect from the alliance. Yeah, very much so. And that's, you know, any community that you look at, and we could shut the doors here, and we could look at ourselves as a cultural entity unto ourselves here as part of the Firefly family, right? And we have a lot in common. We have something that keeps us all connected. And if, you know, I'll bet you anything, if we kept going to convention after convention, and encounter different thoughts on Firefly, we find ourselves drawn to each other time and time and time again. And in any culture, you're around people long enough, you grow and develop alongside of them. How many of you have, and I'll use fandom as an example, how many of you have developed some of your best and most long-term friendships out of fandom, and have seen each other grow and develop in fandom? A lot of us can say that, right? Yeah. A lot of us can say that. In your own community, at home, when you leave here. You know, you've got family, you've got friends. Family you're kind of stuck with. Or not.
I moved like 30 miles away.
You know, yeah, you're 3,000 miles away upstate. But, from the psycho farm. But, that's an interesting story. We all get the stories, I'm sure. But you've got a community that you're a part of, right? And in that community, if you don't have the chemistry, and you can't keep that community alive and developing, evolving, what's going to happen to your community? It's going to become stagnant. There's going to be too much conflict. You're not going to be able to maintain that small society very well. So I think the idea of looking at the chemistry of very unknown people thrown together, not only as a cast, and I think that helped their situation in terms of how they had to come together and learn about each other as actors so that they could bring these characters to life and show those types of relationships that they were able to show. So, I mean, you're dead on with that, and that's very much something that happens in every small society, you know, small community.
During an interview, I remember somebody said that the first thing they someone did was he's been around and named everybody's name and like I challenge you to create a sort of entity bonding.
And that's not only was he a very strong influence as an actor, as an individual, but also his character Mel was a very strong individual. And there's much to be said for the individual in any society. Since it's come up, it's in one of the slides at some point, but if you take a basic cultural anthropology class, and how many of you have, a lot of them, oh, that's nice, a lot of us have an introduction to cultural anthropology. One of the things that they cover is the role of the individual, do they not? And what do they teach you about the role of an individual? Why is an individual so important to a culture? very much so, can become culturally acceptable. I'm gonna take it a little bit further, because once that behavior becomes culturally acceptable, that individual has introduced their variability into the culture. Their behavioral, ideological variability has been introduced into that culture, has it not? Oh, and some people are starting to accept it. Well, what if that individual brought about great ideas and challenges that dramatically altered the culture for the better? That individual variability that comes into a culture through our different thoughts and actions gives an individual a great deal of power to help that society grow and evolve. Good.
I think we most commonly see it affect negatively. There's quite a lot of negatively. I showed that if you draw that line over and over and over and over again, we need The Walking Dead.
Yeah.
With the governor and his actions being either acceptable or hidden. When different people accept, this is the world now, these are actions that I committed, you either accept that or you go away. And even in our own world, even though it was institutionalized, it was Hitler's action, and the Nazi party that then became okay for the entire society.
Yeah, and that's where, an individual is extremely powerful. For good or for bad.
One part of the problem with culture too, that we always focus on the negative. Yeah. Because, not trying to say not, if you look at Hitler, he actually was a brilliant mind. His ideology was horrible, but he was a brilliant mind when it came down to it. I mean, he went nuts in the end, but you look at some of his, how he was going about certain things, he was brilliant. We always focus on negative in our culture. It doesn't matter worldwide, we always do is always negative this, negative that, but you never look at what they do well.
No, but you know what? Change is a difficult thing to accept.
Yeah.
And, even Martin Luther King Jr.
Yeah.
is a very powerful individual who became really the spokesperson for equal rights. And a lot of rights groups at the time jumped on that bandwagon. But was society ready for that kind of change? No, not at all. But eventually, that message became an accepted message. And we've slowly moved in a forward direction.
Individual personality and perception wasn't accepted at the time.
We slowly made that walk towards it. So, in the case of the character and the actor, you're talking about a very powerful individual who had a great deal of influence, and that influence was so positive, it had a huge impact on the success of your show overall.
I love the bad guy. I can't remember his name, but his belief. That shows how belief just changed everything. Because he had such belief.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
One, yeah.
You look at Jamestown, even with the perception of the individual.
Yeah, he did.
Yeah.
James, who was only thinking about himself, the perception became that he was doing this for the people, and that changed their entire society and everything that they were willing to fight for, willing to do, and all the other individuals around him, even though that wasn't his intention. But it's the perception of that can be a problem.
Oh, yeah, how many of us intentionally, walk out the door and say, I'm gonna, bring about some important change in my world today? Okay, you did.
Every morning.
Every morning. Wow, that's my morning coffee. I'm gonna take down the world, I'm gonna change that world.
In the world like buying that coffee.
There you go. That's most definitely so. We choose to act in certain ways in our society. Now, of course, society has constraints on our behavior, but we still have some control over that. And even though we may appear a little bit more deviant, I think, some of the things, I'll use Benjamin as an example. A lot of clubs, a lot of conventions seek to there's people that put all this together, there's people that lead clubs, there's people that lead convention programs. And they always come up with some way to do good for the community. And so in small ways, each one of us is part of that fandom, and we take our beliefs, our ideologies with us that come from fandom, and the things that we watch or read, and we do maybe even subconsciously apply that in everyday life, and in that small way, we're slowly bringing about hopefully more positive change, right? So, for better or worse, individuals do have a great deal of power with respect to cultural change. And I think, bringing some of these actors together, bringing them to the characters that they were brought into, and watching how those individuals impact each other, impact the story, and impact us, is tremendous in epitomizing how the role of the individual is so significant to cultural change and maintaining cultural evolution, really. The symbolism of the theme song is something I wanted to point out. That song sticks in your head, does it not?
Oh, I know every word.
Anybody who cares to sing. Now, we have...
Let's carry up time.
Oh, no,
Don't get that angry.
Yes, my karaoke moment has come and gone.
We'll take a picture, though. Wait, a video.
Thanks. My karaoke moment has come and gone. But if you guys would like to, jump into songs, go right ahead. But what is it about the song that's so appropriate for this show?
It's saying you can take everything from them, but they're still free. They can always have their mind, always be able to go and do what they need to.
No matter what constraints our beloved government places upon us.
Where I cannot stand. I mean, they're saying take everything, screw you, have to go here.
What's going on in our world? We still need, no matter what's going on in the political world around us and what's happening to us, with the rich getting richer, the poor getting poorer, and the whole 9 yards, all the healthcare methods, you name it. As suffocated as some people tend to feel with all the things going on, if you listen to that song, it tells you no matter what they do to you, there's still a way that you can find hope and you can overcome these things. And, you'll be okay, basically. There's a lot of hope in that show. There's a lot of hope in that ship. And I think it came along at a time when the show first aired. We were just starting to hit some major crashes economically in our society, and then we took a big dip.
Well, also, when it first aired, really, because not a lot of people saw it when it first aired.
Yeah.
It was about a year later that everyone started catching on to, what's the show, Firefly? Oh, well, here's DVDs, watch it. I mean, that's what it was. The Browns was all about that. They literally did huge campaigns, bring out the DVDs, and get them on DVD, and get them out to everyone.
Yeah, and back in, 2010, the Science Channel picked it up for a while.
Yeah.
And showed it and aired it.
I love it. I'm so okay with that.
But I think that, that's what the ship symbolizes, is that symbolism of hope under, the most adverse of situations, yeah. And, we went through a lot of that with, from 2002, right on, we really hit some bad times, yeah. 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 Is that what you're going to say?
Well, let's lead off of that, and then you can see that people are looking for that, I guess, all the time. But when it airs, and even now, it continues to grow. You can see the parallels with more and more people moving into cities and that economic difference. And I think the song might even be more relevant now to us than it was when I first came out.
Yeah, perhaps so.
Well, you can also look at the theme song with the characters when they all came on board. Kalia, Strada, and give her a spark hope she gets to get off the planet, she gets to go be free. They find Simon and River, they're getting out of the law. They're finding the chain, they got him all of them. But, you know, like all of them, it was like their chance to like that. What was that? The episode where Mal was going through looking at the ship, and it was his one hope. It was his chance of building something and creating hope. And like that's what the whole theme of it. That the ship, the song, everything.
Shepherd Book is there.
Shepherd Book, finding that I have trouble.
Now, like, again, if you guys don't know, a lot of you said you didn't know Shepherd Book's backstory. Get the book, read that comic. You know, it will really enhance your perspective of that character and where he came from. You better picture that guy to be the badass you want.
I know. I'm glad they made that.
The comic? The comic? Yeah. There was, I forget what the artist was. There's a little. Yeah. Now, another thing that's very interesting, you guys familiar with Shakespeare and the Tempest? Who's familiar with the Tempest in Shakespeare? We got about 4 people. Oh, wait a minute, an expert on Shakespeare. Thank you so much. I bring that up because of the planet Miranda. The correlations between the Tempest and Miranda as a planet, I mean, there's people obviously in the Tempest, and we're dealing with a planet here, but the same kind of thing is going on. And I think the correlations are just glaring. Anybody ever pick up on that? The correlations between the characters in the Tempest and Miranda as a planet? Well, what's going on with Miranda? Oh, we got that guy. The whole, you know, the government and the PACs and the social control. There's 5 hours of discussion right there. Oh, they created the Reavers, did they? Yeah, oh, the society's out of control. Let's give these happy drugs. Oh, my goodness. Yeah, that's all. So let's go back to Miranda for a minute. What's going on with that planet?
I think what Dr. Lewis trying to accomplish Miranda was kind of, I guess, society and government's idea of trying to fix people with more love and kindness instead of just leaving them alone. Because honestly, like, with Miranda, okay, yeah, it's gonna have crime, so that's just kind of one of those things where it's always just like everything else, you know? I mean, you can't take everything away from the past, something that happened. Sometimes you just go too far, and it's great.
Yeah, and we've got a lot, there's a lot to say on that in a minute, but how does that tie into the characters in the Tempest, the Shakespeare Tempest? Yeah.
Would the government be considered like Prospero, who uses all of his magic to create the Tempest, the Reavers, and ends up realizing that he really didn't need to do all this. This wasn't the necessary situation.
Yeah.
If he had just stopped screwing around and just let things run their course, he wouldn't need to cause the Tempest in order to cause all these things to fix, and Miranda would have just gotten along all by itself.
Yeah, and I you know, that comparison just struck me, and when I was going through the material one day, and you know, and a lot of Shakespeare is social commentary, and it fits perfectly with this planet, yeah.
I mean, there's parallels as well to animal political figures.
Yeah.
And you can have too much of a good thing. If you do, you might get people on the side. Everybody can help you.
What?
The road to hell is paved with best intentions.
That's what you thought about Miranda? Anybody?
Yeah, that's what I thought.
I think it's humans thinking that without flaws everything will be okay, but once you take away your flaws, you're no longer human.
No, you're not. I mean, that's a big.
Flaws are unique.
Yeah, but it is. Flaws are uniqueness, and you need to have flaws. And that's what defines you. If we don't have flaws, what are we then? You know. With the deconstruction of the public education, I picture with what's going on with poverty right with you. With what I picture with the public education system, if you track this from the 1960s to present day, what's happened with public education, the K-12 system, and what I see at the college level, I mean, but it's like, wow.
Upwards. Oh, pretty much.
I mean, it's just, what are they learning in the public education system any longer, and what's happening to the United States in terms of its place among other countries around the globe in various categories. And, I mean, we're just slipping away. But people, like developing nations, that don't have access to proper health care, don't have access to birth control, don't have access to education, do they challenge the government?
No.
They're a well-controlled sheep population, aren't they? Because they don't know any different.
Well, and they're too busy struggling.
They are, they're too busy focusing on their struggles.
You know, you can't even think when you're struggling.
You can't think when you're struggling. Even people that come from impoverished, parts of the United States.
Mm-hmm.
And the schools are disproportionate as well in terms of what resources inner city schools have, rural schools have, schools in. And once you take away education or decrease access to education, affect health care and so forth, you have this kind of social control basically sort of imposed. And people are too busy wrapped up in their own struggles, and I think a lot of that comes through in Firefly. Yep. Oh, yeah, she was first, but okay, you guys broke it up. Yeah. Hold on to that for a second. It is a very scary thing because we are, as advanced as we are in many, many things, as a people, as a human species on the planet overall, the major countries are still very much tied into a whole mercantile attitude that there's limited resources and limited wealth, and we've got to control. It is, that's all they're worried about. And so they're still in that old time, mercantile attitude, and we can't break free of that. And so because of that, we keep repeating the mistakes we've made in the past, historically. And it's just a vicious cycle, and we need to get out of that. We need to really provide decent education and access to all kinds of things so that people's minds will open up, become creative, critically thinking, and developing so that we can adapt better, so that we can grow, so we can expand and continue as a species. Yeah, the fear-mongering that's begun.
That's bad for business.
Whose business?
Yeah.
There's a thought that Firefly and the sampling of it, they, would do viewership and due to being moved around. But it could have also been simple because it wasn't the right type of gladiator fight.
Yeah.
It wasn't going to, it was going to educate us or make us think about these things versus just be another show that we left faster.
Yeah, and Fox probably was not the right network for this show at all.
Yeah.
No. And I like to believe that science fiction should be an area that is left alone to continue to explore these very important cultural and human issues. Because that really, to me, in Firefly, is really something that epitomizes the idea that science fiction is contemporary myth and contemporary narrative that we watch and we learn from. And we make those correlations to our own world, and we come together and we want these changes to happen. We want positive changes. We don't want to go down these paths to these dystopic futures. Did Fox pick up on it and say, hey, that's the end?
Well, they ain't that smart, 'cause they killed their profits right there against on that show.
Anyhow, they just gave me the time button back there. So I want to thank you guys all for coming and participating in a very brief discussion. discussion of the wonders of Firefly here. Hopefully I will see some of my other talks throughout the weekend. We can go for hours.